Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. This morning's episode is very crucial. I feel I have made an advancement in my own work. I have found a way to model something. What I have managed to model is, to be honest, my response, I can say. A personal response to this situation we have on the planet, which is a war, not war, but this conflict between what is believed and what is experienced. Some people have to believe it before they can experience it on this planet, whatever a truth beyond the limits of sensory perception may be. And some people have to experience it first before they believe it. So really the discrimination that comes from noticing the difference between a belief and an experience is really an important point of life. I was wondering that if we could design a model, a sort of method, not method, but categories. I mean, that's what we have done, really. When you look at knowledge, it is a massive categorization of one existential occurrence through different ranges of experience. So I noticed that really we have people who believe and people who experience. The main difference between belief and experience is that if you were, let's say you were sitting in the park, and there's a person, let's say you're with your friend in the park, and suddenly this person tells you that behind you there is a purple elephant. Imagine. Imagine you can't see what's behind you, and someone tells you behind you there's a purple elephant. That's where belief comes in, when there hasn't been authorization through experience. The person is believing something they don't know, or they're disbelieving something they don't know. So a belief is a certainty without existential backup, you know. You can say a belief is how the world is real only in your inner realms, or so far to your inner realms. Because the difference between experience would be that person no longer believing that there's a purple elephant behind them, and they actually turn around. So, on this planet, the younger you are, the easier it is to believe, because there is less value for experience. In my youth, it was much easier to have other people think in the moment, other people live. It was only, I would say, after the mortal wake up clock, alarm clock. Honestly, when I realized I'm here for a little while, that's when I started actually taking life seriously to start having a relationship with it. You know, anything a person doesn't take serious, they can't build. You know, an inventor has to take the basic, simpler levels of the invention seriously before they can invent. You know, it's kind of like journeys. Sometimes I feel an invention is not like suddenly a person saw something. It was something that has been brewing for a while. The mystery has been exposed through various angles to the individual inventor. I'm going to say that there are four stages. First, there's the belief, something where you are familiar of. You can say you know, but you don't know completely. A belief is a suggestion that could be real, really, when we look at it. That can be. So let us say there's a state of, uh, there are human beings with states of mind where they're just believing things. Then there are some people who are believing in an experience. So that means there's one person who's believing there's a purple elephant behind them and they can't see it. They haven't turned around to see it. And then there's someone who is like someone's telling them, hey man, if you turn around, there's a purple elephant. They believe in the possibility of the experience, yet the experience is not there. It is after an experience or exposure to some event where the belief becomes experience. That means the person not looking, not even thinking that they can experience the purple elephant behind them, they are a believer. They are a believer. Then there's the believable experience, which I'm trying to use the same metaphor to explain to you. So it would be the person believing that they could turn around and see the elephant. The experienced belief would be turning around and seeing the actual elephant. And then after you have seen the actual elephant, you're left with experience. So I honestly feel that beliefs are not static, they are a phase of something. That once the person believes, what's the whole point of getting closer? You know how many billions of people on the planet are very religious, and I personally have walked in a religious mindset myself. Believe it or not, I was raised in a nation that had religious law in the nation's law. But I'll tell you this, belief is the first stepping stone, and the last stepping stone is experience. We don't need an advanced civilization of believers, people who believe they have power, ability, or advancement. You know, we need at least, if we in some sense there has to be. So here's the thing, imagine that we have this massive movement where we stop taking beliefs seriously, but we take believable experiences seriously. So for me, when I read a religious narrative, any story, even science fiction, do you know, it becomes a believable experience where my mind somehow sees the corners of how it could fit into my worldview. If we take the belief as known based. We gotta believe. We gotta see it to believe it. That means if we consider belief to be, I mean, how would I say this? Sometimes when I look at the word belief, it's like two words. It's like be life, but the E and the F were switched around. Sometimes I feel like, how there's a McDonald's commercial where it's like ba 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 ba, I'm loving it, something like that. I sometimes feel it's the same with ideology. It's like ba 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 ba, I'm believing it, you know. It's so easy to believe. A belief is a mask, you know, and beliefs are not just about macrocosmic phenomena or events or the world. Beliefs are about the self as well. We believe because there is either an energetic laziness or a lethargic curiosity. A belief has no value, only to the inner realms. A believable experience is the inner realms considering that what it's seeing in the inner realms can be valid in the outer realms. The experienced belief is what is actually real in the outer realms, and the person then, it's as if like what they thought has been actualized. There was a time where people believed that we could go to the moon. But when we went to the moon and we surpassed it, nobody believes anymore if we can travel in space. Nobody needs to believe or disbelieve it. People know it because it's experientially accessible. So really, we have to build a civilization that focuses not on the belief, but on the experiencer. And experience is way more valuable than belief. Do you know, I'm telling you, things that you believe, you tend to, if it's not, or if the belief even hasn't arose from you, you forget it very quickly. You see, the mind is like a lion. What that means is it's not like a hyena. It doesn't just go eat whatever is left. The lion hunts its own prey, goes with the certainty of its own command. The lion experiences for itself. You can say experience is the roar of the lion that believes it's a sheep. due to the nature of this realm being very cyclical, Mr. Within wants to suggest to the modern man that we consider there is a cyclical shift to belief. You know, it's strange. I've had dreams that have been very similar to reality. But when I've woken up, it's as if that dream wasn't real anymore. So it was as if it's like reality is a certain phase or a certain type of reception of the world. You know, now we're making it so easy that we have forgotten to challenge our own eyes. Excuse me. Those who believe, they are not ready yet to move themselves. Those who are believable, let's say they believe in the experience, they still are not ready either. You see, there's some things in life, until you actually get engaged in the game that you're existing in, you don't get the experience. So I can tell you that starting 2011 to 2014, I went through a sort of intuitive obstacle course. It was a phase of my life where I felt it was not, 2011 was the limbo state. In my writings, I call it the cloudy days. But getting up to 2014, then especially from 2014 to 2016, I experienced a very unique relationship with my inner realms. That relationship was trusting the whole moment rather than just its content. If you trust the content of the moment, if the content changes, it's over, it's done. Do you know? If the belief is conditional, if the condition changes, it's done. You know, that's why unconditional belief is very similar to staring at emptiness. Because beliefs tend to be based on the conditions of the realm. This idea of the world being in different circumstances, different containments, different modalities, pretty much. The whole aim of mystical, spiritual practice universally, and pretty much every human being who's suffered on this planet, has been to find an unconditional state. A state that who they are doesn't change in accordance to all the phenomena in the room. You see, a mystic is what happens to you after you have observed the outer realms and now the mysteries of the inner realms are pulling you, you know? I can tell you that 2011 was the belief phase. The believable experience started after 2011. You can say up to 2000, before 2014, the experience belief began really truly 2014. Oh, sorry guys. I think the mic's hitting my jacket and I didn't realize it. Guess I gotta take my jacket off. The talk's getting serious, you know. Sorry guys, I'll tell you this. Think of it this way. There's so many sounds a person hears on the street everywhere they go and they walk. I'm telling you, it's just these sounds, extra sounds people hear in these talks of mine. I mean, of course, it's the contrast with silence. There's so much random sound in the world that honestly, when we stop judging sound, perhaps that's when the light is truly in our eyes. By the way, guys, I noticed something. I thought I should just start saying it. Please share questions in the chat section if you want me to engage. You know, that means share your comments, but share it through a question format. So, anyways, 2014 to 16, it was the experience belief. 2016 onwards, such a strange thing happened to me that I would tell you I felt my inner life had died after getting old. What I mean by that is, in my inner realms, there is no age. There is no body to suffer. Literally, there's nobody to suffer. In the inner realms. The inner realms is pretty much how we as human beings were like, whoa, what's imagination? And notice that there's a room of subjective activity going on simultaneously as we're being objective creatures. We have ignored this room. We have reacted to the imagery of legend and forgotten the significance of the metaphor. And guys, is the mic better now? I hope it is. This life will show your face and will show your eyes various archetypes. That's the game of human life. You pretty much come on a soccer field, imagine, and on the soccer field you're going into different positions in different phases of your life. This is why I say all of life doesn't come down to a belief, it comes down to piloting existence as experiential attention. Not only this can be done, this has been done since the beginning. It's just now we are conscious. I have to, for the sake of the way we've introduced time in this dimension, say there was a subjective evolution. But really, the potential's there. It's as if the potential is being built by another world. This is something I've never shared in these talks, but I'll say it. In I think it was 2012, 13, somewhere there, where a friend of mine told me there was a psychic expo in downtown Toronto. This place where all these psychics had gone and stuff. And I had a sort of mystical sense, so my friend was like, all right, he told me about it. Then I was like, all right, let's go try it. And I remember I was at a phase of my life where it was like the movie Yes Man, but I wasn't saying yes and I wasn't saying no. It was like the yes no man, you know? Every time I wanted to say yes, I could see a no. Every time I wanted to say a no, I could see a yes. Anyways, we go to the Psychic Expo, and I remember my friend at the time, close friend of mine, Gabriel. Unfortunately, now I have no idea uh, where life has taken him. But really, when we went to the Psychic Expo, he pretty much went one round. He went one round. He literally did a lap around the whole psychic convention. It was like this warehouse filled with different booths. And he left. Yeah, he just took a look and he left. You know, and he, of course, he was very secular. He was a very secular, conspiracy fearing type of person. I wouldn't say conspiracy fearing, conspiracy bound. I remember walking in there in the Psychic Expo, and for a moment in my inner realms, I don't know if it was my mind trying to uh, play around in the moment, or if it was something, but I saw simultaneously in a subtler dimension, what do you call it? I honestly feel we are being surveillanced by other dimensions on a massive level. We don't see it. That means we are right now looking at space, and we may think there's nothing, but I'm telling you, there could be another side to the coin potentially. Of course, some things cannot be proven if they are beyond the dimension. That means if you want to see it to believe it, that's limited to the dimension of your sight. Anything that surpasses the dimension of your sight, how can you see it to believe it? That means if something moved potentially right now everybody's like, I want to see it to believe it. Just check this out. Look at how flawed this strategy is. Because if something was moving faster than the speed of light, we would never be able to see it to even believe or disbelieve it. So by limiting the world to our eyes, we have limited language in creating space for the psychological expression of the being to occur. If this life didn't change, then you could see it to believe it. But because it's changing, what you see is changing. So before you can believe what you see is changing before you have the belief. It is now time, for the first time in the history of the Homo sapiens journey, of the human creature, the human animal. For the first time, there has come a need to develop a silent language, a language that cannot be taken away from man. That means I honestly feel that language, it should be like an obstacle course. Honestly, this may be too intense of an idea, but I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm being a bit of a maverick here, but I could totally imagine that there could be certain schools in the future where the school is connected to the hospital, you know? Or I could tell you the child never leaves a building. And for many years of its life, it's in a building until the moment. What can I say? There will come a time where our eyes will no longer be our eyes. The elements will return to nature. Right now, the elements have become our eyes. You know, right now, if a person tries to be really too non-dual, it's kind of like all the four elements: earth, air, fire, water. Let's say five elements, ether. They're all of them being like, what the fuck? You know, we elements, we cells came together so you can be you. Now the person who is the individual is wanting to become the cells again. You see, after some point, you're going to realize everything changes so much that the only strength in the battlefield is continuity. That means if people can get to the next phase of life, does it matter how they got to that next phase? I remember there was a moment where I was late for a class downtown Toronto. This was, you can say, a while ago. And I ran so quick down the stairs. I don't know, but sometimes if you have to run downstairs, you don't actually step on the stairs, you step on the right angle edges. This is something I wouldn't recommend to everyone, only if you've had a childhood where you've climbed trees, you should do this. Yeah. We have seen what it's like to be an object. We have seen what it's like to be a subject. We have seen what it's like when we subjectify the world. We have seen what it's like to objectify the world. You know, that means everybody pretty much, I think, has, whether they're fully conscious or not, that's another matter, but everybody has an awareness to an objective self being in an objective world, and a subjective self being in a subjective world, but the subjective world changes quicker than the subjective self. The subjective self changes quicker than the objective world. And the objective world changes quicker than the objective self. So there is speed. There's definitely a speed factor to any sort of traveling, whether it's between dimensions or between different points in a dimension. You know, they say a line is many separate points. And sometimes I feel that the individual lives of human beings, they are like this masterpiece of nature with like a pencil, sharp pencil, something's being drawn. So, Charles, you say what we perceive are the qualities, qua of our perceptions. There's a type of philosophy that ends the search too soon. And there's a type of philosophy that trusts the intuition of the unknown. You see, any time we pilot our attention beyond the human idea, it can be put into any sort of strange context. You know, let me say something that I don't know if Carl Jung spoke about it, but let us say there is strange archetypes and then there are original archetypes. Now, strange archetypes are archetypes where the person doesn't know if they're original or not. You know, Socrates was so ahead of its time, He has said something that as long as there's human beings on their earth, it will translate to wisdom to them. And he says the only true wisdom is to know that you know nothing. That means if the world seems to be more nothing than something, then we are made, or our meaning is based on more nothing than something. Now, there could be a chance nothing is a curtain, that we think it's empty, but it's not. This is something that I've personally theorized, that we think empty space is empty space. Little do we know that it's like an ocean and we're the fish, and sometimes the fish can go into intelligent currents that are disembodied. That means you can say all the relationships with any sort of theosophical context or interdimensional context with any beings has been a relationship of a fish inside a current. Okay? It's not, that means it's like, just because we can communicate with other dimensions doesn't mean we're in them. Doesn't mean we have to be in them. That means the first thing I like, honestly, if somebody wanted to pilot their inner realms, the first thing I'll tell them to do is to go and find some plate in their house, you know, and get that plate and go above like 2 meters or something, and hold it. Hold that plate in mid-air and look at it. Just look at the plate. Actually hold it in whatever way you like. Do you know? Then I want you, after you have held this, even hug the plate, let's say. Hug the plate too. You know, show some love to that plate. Ceramic plate. Then I want you to slam that, what do you call it? Slam that plate on the ground, or I won't say slam, but I would say, okay, maybe get 2 plates. Slam the first one, then the second one. And plastic plates don't count, guys. My whole point is you gotta get comfortable with holding on to things and letting go. That means, like, look at the butterfly, look at the bird. They've mastered this. We haven't as human beings. We say knowledge is in branches. We look at a bird can jump to any branch. You can fly off that tree of knowledge even. You can say these are different states of mind. There's the story, the Zen story, where you can say there was this imperial warrior, undefeated in battle. After his last battle, he kills the last person he kills. He suddenly notices, like suddenly all these people he's killed. He wonders to himself, where are they going? You know? The Imperial Warrior tells his assistant to go find the sage, a location. He finds the location. This incredibly egotistical Imperial Warrior, he finds himself at the door of this monastery. He goes inside. There's a bunch of monks having a Zen tea ceremony with the main monk, the main sage, Zen sage there, the Zen master, let's say. Someone who has mastered Zen by never being. But I'll say this. The guy, the Imperial Warrior, goes in and he just shouts and he says sage as if like he doesn't even realize what's going on with the Zen tea ceremony. The whole point of the Zen tea ceremony is when you drink tea, you only drink tea. You're doing nothing else. There's no Zen master, there's no disciple, there's nothing. When you drink a cup of tea, you're just a human being drinking a cup of tea. You know? It's never just honesty, it's honesty plus discrimination. These two make honesty's true power rise. Discrimination means a judgment and an awareness of what's in the attention. Anyways, the Imperial Warrior goes in and says, "Sage, tell me what is heaven and hell." And he shouts this. He shouts this as if like the walls are getting even scared, intimidated by this Imperial Warrior's presence. Or even, let's say, the gods in the walls are getting intimidated by this Imperial Warrior's presence. What happens is the Imperial Warrior says, "You're too much of an animal." He looks at the sage looks at the Imperial Warrior and says, "You're too much of an animal and violent person for me to tell you what's heaven and hell. You're too much of a goon." And the guy's like, "Excuse me," as if nobody's ever touched his ego. And if so, the first person who has dared, and now he raises his samurai sword and he's really about to kill the sage. He's not letting himself be dishonored. And in that moment, as a sword is about to land on the Zen master's head, and let's say the Imperial Warrior says, "You have dared dishonor me, die now." Imagine something intense. Before the sword hits the Zen master takes a sip from his cup of tea. Excuse me. And looks at the guy and says, "This is the doors to hell." And the Imperial Warrior can't kill the Zen master. It's as if his desire is being bypassed by his actual clarity of mind. The Imperial Warrior realizes that hell is a state of mind. It is an approach to the moment. He drops his sword and bows as if he has been undefeated in the battlefield, but now in his inner realms he has been defeated. His ego has been defeated. He drops the sword and bows at the Zen master, and the Zen master says, "This is the doors to heaven," implying that once you are gentle, the depth of the world opens. Once you're mindful, once you're aware how the moment is, there isn't too much of a story to life anymore. It's just like this grand event, the grand happening. It's just like a lot of stuff is happening at the same time. And Albert Einstein even says we created time, so everything doesn't happen all at once. So it's very similar. Existence is happening all at once. All those people who feel oneness and love, that's them noticing existence is existing equally. You know, everybody's existentially equal. You can't go to someone and say I exist more than you or you exist less than me. No, everybody exists. You exist, you exist. That's that's the value is there. But it's in regards to what kind of quality of experience is being had, and what awareness is there to the two worlds. The first world being the world that is the moment you were born, and the dash to the moment you transition out of this plane of existence. And then there was a world that was here before you, and there's a world that's going to be here after you. Okay, there's a world that was here before you, and that same world is going to be here after you. So what that means is, because we notice something bigger, we identify as small. And that's the thing. It's just the ratios of big and small. All of knowledge is that. It's the dance between the simple and the complex, the known and the unknown. When we look at what belief is, when we see what people have been fighting over, it's not, it doesn't matter what the color of the belief is, it is the idea. That means if it doesn't matter if it's two people at a bar who are fighting, who one believes that they are right and the other believes they are right, or it's like billions of people who believe this and billions of people who believe that, you know, it's all language. When we realize this, we will truly actually start living in the world. A world that is pure experience. We are going towards there. So I'm going to go into a quote tunnel of what it means to what people in throughout history have said about language, how they have shared their inner realms. Cesar Chavez, our language is the reflection of ourselves. A language is an exact reflection of the character and growth of its speakers. Charlemagne, to have another language is to possess a second soul. Geoffrey Williams, you can never understand one language until you understand at least two. Oh my God, these are about. Mark Twain says the difference between the almost right word and the right word is the difference between uh, the lightning bug and the lightning. Nelson Mandela says if you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. If you talk to him in his language, that goes to his heart. Noam Chomsky, language is a process of free creation. Its laws and principles are fixed, but the manner in which the principles of generation are used is free and infinitely varied. Even the interpretation and use of words involves a process of free creation. Even the interpretation and use of words involves a process of free creation. Yeah, so technically Noam Chomsky is saying the same thing, where it's like language is hollow, because if interpretation of the word which we use to assert to become certain of knowledge, like, doesn't it feel like we're creating the alphabet and we're creating the words and we're expecting the clay in our hand to suddenly match the universe? David Ogilvy says, if you're trying to persuade people to do something or buy something, it seems to me you should use their language, the language in which they think. Oh my God. People are... What can I say about the marketing dimension of this realm? Oliver Wendell Holmes. Language is the blood of the soul, into which thoughts run and out of which they grow. Rita Mae Brown. Language is the roadmap of a culture. It tells you where its people come from and where they are going. Yeah. That's the thing about language, by the way. It's like before there was language, there was activity, and then activity was named. So this is a very peculiar thing. This is something that I think we'll never know. It's as mysterious as how we have the ability of language. But if we named an event first, or we named ourselves first, did we name like a person first, or did we name something a person did first? So for me, that's an evolutionary mystery. Did the verb come first or the noun? I feel it was the verb, but I'm on that side of the stadium. Roger Bacon. Knowledge of languages is the doorway to wisdom. Oh, come on, man. Add a bit more color to this. Knowledge of languages is the doorway to wisdom. Actually, no. The quote stands. Yeah, knowledge of language is the doorway of wisdom. If we don't treat language as just like, for example, the language we speak, but we see mathematics a language, music a language, color a language. I guess knowing how to express through multiple dimensions technically appears as wisdom in this world. Stephen King says French is the language that turns dirt into romance. That turns dirt, yeah. I think Italian is similar too. But I feel the Italian language, something I noticed when I was in Italy, is that the emotional elevations of the people is more. In certain, like Spain, Italy, there's certain countries where it's as if the cultural program has authorized the person more of an emotional, uh, it's like a lack of emotional interference. You see, imagine if the TV never was invented. We would go on being fascinated by people, right? So now we have our attention is not towards actually human beings. I think it's for a lot of people, they don't actually want objects. They want subjective outcomes they see themselves in. And that's very impractical. That's like gambling on the future rather than observing the present moment. And of course, the final quote and the most epic, uh, Ludwig Wittgenstein: "The limits of my language means the limits of my world." Yeah. The Buddha says better than 1,000 hollow words is one word that brings peace. Namaste, namaste. Paul Wellstone says never separate the life you live from the words you speak. Never separate the life you live from the words you speak. Ah. Honor before insight can be a hidden dishonor. I mean, it is true. A person has to, of course, be accurate. But the whole thing about it is, it's like if Rene Descartes was in front of Paul Wellstone, he'd be like, "I don't think so." J.K. Rowling: "Words are, in my not so humble opinion, our most inexhaustible source of magic, capable of both inflicting injury and remedying it." I mean, the way language inflicts, the whole point of magic is attention. It's pretty much mentalism, but with words. And the words become so intense, the person thinks in the inner realms they're real. So they stop looking at their outer realms and they get burdened by their inner realms. Lawrence Durrell says music is only love looking for words. Robin Williams: "No matter what people tell you, words and ideas can change the world." Yeah, and also, I don't know if people know this, as the world changes, the ideas and the words change as well. Henry David Thoreau says the language of friendship is not words, but meanings. H. Jackson Brown Jr.: "Never make fun of someone who speaks broken English. It means they know another language." Honestly, it's like, here's the thing. Nobody ever knows the language in the same way. It's the same thing we entertain when we look at, for example, religious scripture, right? Where we're like, wait a minute, how could people believe in the same religion if everybody's experience and DNA and eyes are different? So how could different eyes have the same religion? Do you see, how could they see the same religion? Do you know that means if every religious person, we could somehow take for a sort of hologram, see a hologram of the sort of religious type of uh, how they perceive God's will, it is different for everyone. You see what it is? Language is was the next thing after object worship, idol worship. We went to subject worship, idea worship. And so we have to wake up from the slumber of idealism. Gore Vidal: "The four most beautiful words in our common language: I told you so." Oh man, if that's beautiful, that's more kind of like hopeless. It's like an urge of hope before hopelessness. I would say the four most beautiful words in our common language. Let me think about this on the spot. The four most beautiful words on the planet. Uh, Four most beautiful words are the four most beautiful words on the planet. There we go. We got it, guys. Literally four most beautiful words. Four words. which are the most beautiful words on the planet. Chief Joseph, it does not require many words to speak the truth. Mark Twain, kindness is a language which the deaf can hear and the blind can see. Balthazar Gracian, a synonym is a word you use when you can't spell the other one. Oh man, yeah. Shonda Rhimes, no is a powerful word. To me, it's the single most powerful word in the English language. Said clearly, strongly, and with enough frequency and force, it can alter the course of history. But what if somebody came up to Shonda and said, no? I'm just saying, I mean, it just means this, it's a very important point that sometimes the person has to know when to put down their feet, on the earth. George Carlin says everyone smiles in the same language. Wow. 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 This quote from George Carlin deserves to be in the in this Museum of Language in the future. Salman Rushdie, language is courage, the ability to conceive a thought, to speak it, and by doing so to make it true. Emily Dickinson, a word is dead when it is said someday. I say it just begins to live that day. Oh, sorry, I'm misreading this. What am I saying? A word is dead when it is said some say. I say it just begins to live that day. Oh yeah, that means after you say something, it's like the moments pass. It's a deep quote. Honestly, language turns the world into a room. And once the world is a room, the self has a story. So really the mystery of human psychology is actually how we are seeing the world. That means after the person satisfies the hunger of their inner realms, they will notice the outer realms. After you live through your desires for a little bit, then there comes a huge wave of boredom. That boredom means that there's more to life rather than just trying to be a shape to ourselves our whole life. You know, one can say that the merit of experience is just the event. That means it's not about who has the right idea or the wrong idea. It's about we're all alive now. What do we do? So the life is a different dimension. I think the first thing we got to do is we got to separate attention from the content within it, which is language. That's what I want to see. That's how an advanced civilization will look like. And let me tell you why. Because the separation from you realizing your attention is being present and your personality is motion based. So really, before you had a name, who was what? Or what was who? Once we go to a state of direct experience, there is no concept. Literally, right now, in the conscious waking state, it is very easy, due to our individual objective position, to just subjectively separate ourselves from the moment. It's so easy to make everything into an alphabet, you know? It's like we looked at a color, the color green, and we're like, yeah, let's call that green from now on, you know? We looked at the color blue and we're like, yeah, let's call that blue. That means we named it. It's as if we're living in a matrix of language, like the movie. But we don't realize it. And this matrix of language, the reason it's a matrix is because there is dishonesty. That's the greatest proof that there's a linguistic simulation. Because if there's dishonesty, that's a suggestion that there is the honest self is hiding. If there's the dishonest self and the honest self, there we go, multidimensional, right there. We've caught the belief in a multidimensional act, therefore rendering the belief's design void. There is a supremacy that doesn't need to change to attain. If somehow the coding of the conditioning of the human being, the coded conditioning, the linguistically coded conditioning of the human being, somehow like a weapon that is 24/7 being used, can be put down on a grass field. Imagine you are, master swordsman, and so you have been in many battles, not like the egotistical imperial warrior from the previous story, but let's say you're just a very balanced master swordsman. And suddenly you put down the weapon on a grass field and you realize that there is no war. That means you will only find unconditional joy if their joy was there before you were in a condition that it wasn't. You know, the snake has to shed its skin or it dies. Nature has to transform or it ceases to live to itself. Shri Nisargadatta Maharaj, he says, this wise man, he says, first the I am myself comes. Then the I am myself goes, and the I am all comes. Then the I am all goes, and the I am is there. And once the I am goes, nature is. That is the unconditional state. All those people seeking enlightenment, you're seeking how everything is in light as a moment of experience. AKA Satchidananda, conscious existence is bliss. As you would realize that your attention to existence is a conscious position, presence, the bliss is the opportunity and potential of life. So you can say those people who are blissed out, they are in their inner realms, is no longer fighting the outer realms. It has honored the outer realms, and now the outer realms have authorized the inner realms' work to begin. Charles says we have to die to the past to be born to the present. I know what you mean, but I'm going to play around with what you say. Technically, the past is already dead. It's past. The past is gone. The only way we can honor the past is by living in the present as if they are still with us, you know. To be born to the present is actually not a birth. And some people say it's an awakening, but I like the word self-realization better. There is a self that is unknown and collective, and you have always known it, and because it's collective, it's unchanging. And then there's a self that is known and it's individual and it's objective and it's temporary. And this self is being witnessed by the other self. Now the other self and this self are inseparable. They're like night and day. That means you can't fathom an individual without the notion of a collective. You cannot I mean, technically you can't fathom the notion of an individual with the notion of the void. But if we were to keep it around dualistic games, so Charles, you say dead or still alive is conditioning. No, no, no. It's gone. It's done. Like as if the past was a concert and you attended it and it's over. The past is really, we suffer from it if we haven't cared to be simple in the present to handle the complexity of the future. Because if the more person tries to be complex in the present moment, you can say, in the presence of attention, or how attention is just being present, you let go of time, as if when Plato said time is the moving image of eternity, we realize we are moving time. We are eternally, we are timelessly considering time when we look at our watches. And the reason we wear watches because it becomes timeless. I think it's our natural state to be timeless. Time is something imposed for the sake of some order phase of reality. So many things are not developed, guys. To be honest, we're just a bunch of creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere. There is some mysteries, though, that make us feel as if what we see is not just what's here. I feel everybody feels this, you know. It's like just because you're talking to someone and you can't see their brain doesn't mean they don't have a brain. You know, so many things are limited by sight. And, you know, it's like if you were to go see what a person's brain is, the person would cease to exist. So sometimes the act of uh, um, classification denies the experience. So you can say there's a state of just pure experience, and through language it becomes classified. It becomes like divide and conquer strategy. The moment the ideology is divided, then the ideology can fight among itself. That means, how many movies have we seen this where it's like the people are trying to, the main characters are trying to sneak somewhere, so into like some kingdom or whatever, and they make the guards fight among themselves. As the guards fight among themselves, they sneak out. They sneak out, you know, or whatever. So it's something like that. You know, it's like the scholarly intent only awakens if you can really treat this life as if it's an island. Like there came a moment where literally, for a moment, I thought, what if nobody on the planet knows? Nobody. And what if the unknown, just the nature of its definition, means that it's like the black hole of conception? Beyond the event horizon of the unknown. You can say the unknown to itself. Call it known, call it unknown. What do you think it cares? Do you think the cosmos cares for, let me tell you, the cosmos cares, but it doesn't care as a person. It cares as an organism, as if we're inside the body of the cosmos, and karma is like when something damages the cosmic body. It's like white blood cells come to attend to it. So the lords of karma, you can say, are like the white blood cells of a cosmic organism, responding to the unnatural or the unwelcome. You know? And here's the thing: when you stop identifying as a thought, you actually, that's when you start noticing thoughts and their beauty, their architecture, you know? That means there's nothing to, it's like there's no, it's like where a belief is like painting language on your face. It's like it proves nothing. It's just very, very primitive. It is primitive when we look at it from the future. For its time, when early tribes were painting their face, I mean that was definitely like some sort of advancement. We have to start treating the world multidimensionally, as if in our inner realms we fast forwarded thousands of years in the future and we realize everything that we thought was bizarre and strange and unknown, suddenly, not unknown, but odd, we suddenly see in the future it's going to be so much more bizarre than that, you know? That means language is not the person. But language is like an Iron Man suit of how there is an identity, even a character in a story to say something. Charles says, We transcend the apparent limits of language and conditioning by employing them as creative guidelines. So, Charles, what do you mean by guidelines? That means your attention is, language is directing your attention, or your attention is noticing the language? I want to share some Rumi quotes, guys. On the journey of this talk, we're going into another quote tunnel. Rumi says, your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. Rumi says, stop acting so small, you're the universe in ecstatic motion. Rumi says, what you seek is seeking you. Rumi says, don't grieve, anything you lose comes round in another form. Rumi says, yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself. Rumi says, you were born with wings, why prefer to crawl through life? Rumi says, don't be satisfied with stories, how things have gone with others. Unfold your own myth. Everything that is made beautiful and fair and lovely is made for the eyes of one who sees. Rumi says, why should I be unhappy? Every parcel of my being is in full bloom. Rumi says, raise your words, not voice. It is rain that grows flowers, not thunder. Rumi says, ignore those that make you fearful and sad, that degrade you back towards disease and death. Rumi says, there is a candle in your heart, ready to be kindled. There is a void in your soul, ready to be filled. You feel it, don't you? I don't know, dear listeners, do you? Do you feel it? Rumi says, words are a pretext. It is the inner bond that draws one person to another, not words. Goodbyes are only for those who love with their eyes, because for those who love with heart and soul, there's no such thing as separation. Rumi says, set your life on fire, seek those who fan your flames. That means, when he says set your life on fire, he means like you're alive once, live, go and live, and any human being who tells you it's impossible, it's not that anything is impossible, it's just like nobody's thought of a way to do it. If you find a way to do it, it's possible. That's the whole thing. It's impossible until it's possible. Everything's impossible until it's possible. It was impossible for the child to walk until it was possible. It was impossible for the child to speak until it was possible. It was impossible for the child to navigate in the inner realms until it's becoming possible. Rumi says, I know you're tired, but come. This is the way. Rumi says this is love, to fly toward a secret sky, to cause 100 veils to fall each moment, first to let go of life, finally to take a step without feet. Rumi says the wound is the place where the light enters you. This quote is so magnificent. This quote, I remember it was 2015 when I really noticed its value. The wound is the place where the light enters you, means that any intense thing, and let's say any suffering, has just been creating the potential for you to see beyond that suffering. That means there's something that there's some moments where, like, I have been alone. Like, let's say like I went to a sort of it was kind of like a club kind of thing, and then I was just in a situation where I was left alone. This was early on, years ago. And when I was left alone, I had a beer in my hand, and I just cheered to the whole moment. It was a very zen clubbing experience. Rumi says, and so it is, that both the devil and the angelic spirits present us with objects of desire to awaken our power of choice. Rumi says, wherever you are and whatever you do, be in love. Start a huge, foolish project like Noah. It makes absolutely no difference what people think of you. Alright, guys, now I can officially say, been there, done that. I haven't done it yet, but Reason is powerless in the expression of love. You have to keep breaking your heart until it opens, says Rumi. Rumi says you have to keep breaking. I read that. Rumi says these pains you feel are messengers. Listen to them. Rumi says let the lover be disgraceful, crazy, absent-minded. Someone sober will worry about things going badly. Let the lover be. Rumi says your heart is the size of an ocean. Go find yourself in its hidden depths. Honestly, I think Rumi's saying this as if like he's tired and somebody's asking him a question. He's like, your heart is, he wants to tell the guy, get out of here, man. But he wants to say it in a mystically polite way, and he's like, your heart is the size of an ocean. Go find yourself in its hidden. Rumi says, I want to sing like the birds sing, not worrying about who hears or what they think. Rumi says, take someone who doesn't keep score, who's not looking to be richer or afraid of losing, who has not the slightest interest even in his own personality. He's free. Rumi says, when the world pushes you to your knees, you're in the perfect position to pray. Wow, wow. That means when you fail in a system, that is the most excellent moment to try to notice the perfection. Rumi says, live life as if everything is rigged in your favor. Rumi says, I am not this hair, I am not this skin, I am the soul that lives within. Oh my God. Who knew hip-hop was alive 700 years ago? Rumi says, be full of sorrow, that you may become hill of joy. Weep, that you may break into laughter. Be full of sorrow, that you may become a hill of joy. Weep, that you may break into laughter. Yeah, I think it's the whole yin-yang thing. Rumi says, sell your cleverness and buy bewilderment. Cleverness is mere opinion. Bewilderment brings intuitive knowledge. Wow, this quote is literally... Rumi says, be empty of worrying. Think of who created thought. Wow. Yeah. That who is a thought. So thought didn't create itself. If thought didn't create itself, we are beyond thoughts. We're literally like a tree rooted in a soil we cannot see. The soul is like the roots of the tree, uh, in the soil. No, what am I saying? The soul is like the roots of the tree in the soil. The branches of knowledge and the mind are like the branches of the tree outside of the soil. And if you notice, there's a singularity of the trunk. That means sometimes I wonder why trees, it's strange for me, why the tree isn't symmetrically halfway. What I mean by that is, that means, why doesn't the tree pull itself more into the ground until half of the tree is just in the soil? Do you know what I mean? Why doesn't the tree start climbing towards the center? Can you imagine how intense it would be if all the trees one day started climbing down towards the center of the earth, and these giant holes towards the center of the earth were made? As if, imagine the roots of a tree suddenly becoming as powerful in force and movement, like a drill, like a mechanical drill. You know, can you imagine? Oh my God! In the future, we have technology that gets the tree and then spins the tree. So in a centrifugal way, we are pulling trees out of the. I don't know. Guys, I'm gonna read 3 more quotes, and then I'm going to move on to Discord to complete the session. Rumi says, "Let yourself be silently drawn by the strange pull of what you really love. It will not lead you astray." Rumi says, "The lion is most handsome when looking for food." That means abide by your true nature. Rumi says, "The very center of your heart is where life begins, the most beautiful place on earth." Oh my God. You know, Rumi feels to me like a portal salesman who accidentally fell in all of his portals, you know. So who knew the most beautiful place on earth is the very center of your heart, as Rumi says, where life is beginning. Rumi says, "Don't you know yet? It is your light that lights the world." That lights the worlds. Wow. Rumi says, "Love is the bridge between you and everything. Seek the wisdom that will unite your knot. Seek the path that demands your whole being. To praise the sun is to praise your own eyes. Dance until you shatter yourself." Rumi says, "It's your road and yours alone. Others may walk it with you, but no one can walk it for you." Rumi says, "Why do you stay in prison when the door is so wide open?" Rumi says, as you start to walk on the way appears." Rumi says, "Very little grows on jagged rock. Be ground, be crumbled, so wild flowers will come up where you are." Rumi says, "What hurts you blesses you. Darkness is your cradle." Rumi says, the only lasting beauty is the beauty of the heart." Rumi says, "The universe is not outside of you. Look inside yourself. Everything that you want, you already are." Rumi says, "Close your eyes, fall in love, stay there." Rumi says, "If light is in your heart, you will find your way home." Rumi says, "Achieve some perfection yourself, so that you may not fall into the sorrow of into it, so that you may not fall into sorrow by seeing the perfection in others." Yeah, that means it's like your eyes have to live a life here. It can't be just observing life only. Rumi says, "This is a subtle truth. Whatever you love, you are." Rumi says, "Forget safety. Live where you fear to live." Rumi says, "What is planted in each person's soul will sprout." Rumi says, "In each moment the fire rages. It will burn away 100 veils and carry you 1,000 steps towards your goal." And that is the end of 55 Rumi quotes, guys. I think I just injected like 55 Rumi quotes in like, what was it, like 15 minutes or so. So anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. I just want to share this model of there's a phase of belief, there's the phase of the believable experience, which is the person caring more about for experience. That means it's like if a belief is impossible, believable experience is it's possible. Experience belief is definitely possible. Experiences its only possibility. So I would say it's something like that. And I'm encouraging every human being to realize that right now maybe the civilization is not ready, but if we were in an advanced civilization, the civilization would request the members of that civilization to become hunter-gatherers of their inner realms and share with society. You see, sometimes I think about my mind and I'm like, why is it here? You know? And I notice that every day that different thoughts, different ideas, different opinions, different views come and go, it's honestly like, what's the point of being conscious of a world if you're here to do nothing, really? That means the point of existence is very dynamic. So the future will require a sort of exploration, you know? And here's the thing, if we can realize everything in our wisdom books are saying this, even Sun Tzu is saying this, that your sense of any person who demonstrates power, force, violence, you are the weakest person in the room. And a Chinese general, Sun Tzu, who wrote The Art of War, says this. That that the great warrior defeats the opponent without raising his weapon. That's how advanced and classy of a mind we should be in this world of ours. You know? So anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I'll see you on Discord. And beyond belief, direct experience is its own door. I think we have created a word that says we have nowhere, and I think we should create a word where we take the W away and we just call it no here. You know? Like a word like this, maybe. That means there's literally no here. A word for the linguistic for the void verse, I would say. Anyways, guys, blessings. Can you imagine, guys, if I'm sounding like, alright, let me tell you another story. Okay, take care, everyone.